In terms of what has worked well, what hasn't, I'll actually talk about. It's not that it hasn't worked well. It's more about, um, and I've made my fair share of mistakes, not over here, but in my previous implementations as well, because it's very, when you are excited about the technology and you get a chance to kind of implement something, you don't tend to question yourself too much in terms of, okay, am I am I solving a real problem, and to what extent am I able to move the needle? Fact is, in any scenario, a conversation helps. The question is, are you able to move the needle enough to balance out the the trade-off factors? And we'll talk about the trade-off factors, but it's not a straightforward thing. It's like you have to invest. I mean, AI comes at a cost as well. There is uncertainty to it as well. So there is a trade-off. So it's where it hasn't worked is where in the past instances where I've kind of been in front of implementations in different other use cases where yes, we were able to build a journey. Yes, our containment ratios were fairly good, but the size of the problem wasn't large enough to really move the needle. And so now I think what happens literally on a daily basis, if not at least weekly, is you have many people who are excited about, hey, can we see if we can bring in a conversation over here? And what actually happens is, so whether it's to do with maybe, someone who's basically trying to take a business process and, add a conversational element to it. And more often than not, the guidance that we give to our partner teams and to our colleagues and others is see if there is a simpler way to do it. Why do you need a conversation? If it's like three-step process, because people prefer click, click, click. A happy path is always preferred in terms of a click, click, click. If you can get through that, you do it. Only where the happy path hasn't worked, or by definition, you need to have a conversation saying you're preparing for an interview, or you're basically trying to kind of get to that second level of complexity of a search, that's where a conversation comes in. So where I'm giving you a slightly roundabout answer to the unsuccessful ones, but I think it's more of, it's not unsuccessful, it's the wrong application of the technology. It's not finding the right place to apply this technology. Technology by at the end of it is a means to an end. It's a question of choosing where you get it right, where you absolutely need it, which is where I said is basically the ambiguity, the uncertain quasi nature of the task to be done, versus if it's a straightforward piece, maybe not do a conversation, just do a straightforward implementation, traditional implementation. I don't know, did that answer the question?
Oh, yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
And I think you raised a couple of very good points, right? So one is that just because you're interacting with user, don't make everything conversational, right? It's only where you have to go back to the user to get finer details, right? And there is a to and fro that
Yeah.
might happen, right? That is where a conversational will do better than click, click, click. Still prefer click, click over a conversation as a
Yeah.
default mode,
Yeah.
right? Another very interesting point that you raised is that look at the size of the solve. So whether you build AI for 100 users or whether you build for 1,000 users or whether you build for 10,000 users, of course, scale will have its own engineering challenges, but a large part of the fundamental cost will be same.
Yeah.
But the kind of returns you will get on the smaller numbers will not be same as the kind of returns you will get on the larger numbers.
Exactly. Or it's basically the to the extent to which you're able to, even if it's 100 users, but if you're able to kind of the magnitude of the changes by a factor of say 50, 60, it's like drastically different. Yes, they are getting your ROI. It is ultimately boils down to ROI. You're putting in the investment, it comes at a cost, there's a trial and error involved. Are you able to kind of bring in the kind of return, or is there a simpler way to do it?
Absolutely.